Welcome to the 700 Club. A dead man walking. That's how Prime Minister Netanyahu refers to Israel's most wanted terrorist, the leader of Hamas in Gaza.
Well, this individual is also known as Gaza's bin Laden. Yahya Sinwar is the monster mind behind the October 7th massacre. He's now at the top of Israel's kill list. George Thomas reports.
A murderer and terrorist, notoriously wanted by Israeli security, Yahya Sinwar is the leader of Hamas terrorist organization in Gaza.
9 days after Hamas's terror attacks, the IDF put out this video declaring Yahya Sinwar Israel's most wanted man.
The IDF considers Sinwar a direct enemy of the state of Israel, and his genocidal terrorist organization, Hamas, is a threat to the entire world.
In 2015, the State Department designated Sinwar as a terrorist. 2 years later, he became chief of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Israel says Sinwar has repeatedly called for the death of Israelis.
سيهاجم شعبنا كل المستوطنات مرة واحدة. سيجد كل واحد منهم إما سكينا يطعن به أو سيارة يدهس بها أو زجاجة حارقة يشعل بها قلوبكم.
Days after the October 7th attacks, Israel put Sinwar on a kill list, accusing him of masterminding the attacks. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Sinwar is now a dead man walking.
The Hamas terrorist organization has no boundaries. Israel's citizens witnessed this firsthand on October 7th when they saw the murders, abuse, brutality, rape, kidnapping, and other atrocities conducted by the terrorists. Hamas leadership is responsible for this, and we will get to them, we will get to Yahya Sinwar, and we will eliminate him.
Israel's defense minister telling Gazans that if they want the war to end soon, they should help find and kill the 61-year-old Palestinian dubbed Gaza's bin Laden. Hamas, an Iranian proxy, sent thousands of its fighters across the Gaza border that Saturday morning, a month ago, into some 20 towns and villages here in southern Israel, killing more than 1,400 people. Days later, Israel launched Operation Swords of Iron, vowing to eliminate the terror group from the coastal enclave.
One thing I can say to the citizens of Israel at the end of the war, there will no longer be Hamas in Gaza. There will be no security threat from the Gaza Strip to Israel. And Israel will have complete freedom of action to carry out any security actions it needs against anyone who threatens us.
This week, Netanyahu compared Sinwar to Hitler, accusing him of hiding in a bunker while his people in Gaza suffer.
Yahya Sinwar hides in his bunker and lets the Hamas field commanders die in the field. In our forces, our commanders head to the front line, leading their troops, charging forward and making real achievements in the field.
Well, George Thomas joins us now from Jerusalem. So, George, tell us, is Sinwar really in a bunker? How does Israel actually know he's in Gaza?
Well, Gordon, Israel has deployed 3 divisions of the Israeli Defense Forces, in essence, completely surrounding Gaza City, pushing every minute, every hour closer and closer into the heart. Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu in that piece, as well as Israel's Minister of Defense, Gallant, saying without a shadow of a doubt that he is in a bunker in Gaza City. In essence, he has lost all communications with his field commanders. In fact, there's a report out of a British newspaper just in the last few hours saying that our top Hamas leader has apparently gone public and is in essence blaming Ismail Haniyeh, who lives today palaciously in Qatar, as well as Sinwar, blaming these 2 leaders for the complete decimation of the Gaza Strip and the plight of Hamas. So clearly the pressure on Sinwar has increased ever since the IDF publicly named him as the most wanted man. And incidentally, Gordon, not only is he known as the bin Laden of Gaza, he is also known as the butcher of Khan Yunis. Why? Because he's notorious. Over the 20 years, he in essence eliminated, killed, murdered all the Palestinians who the Hamas leadership accused of collaborating with the Israelis over the many years. So that's why he got the nickname the butcher of Khan Yunis. Gordon?
Well, he was actually convicted. If you go all the way back to 1989, he executed 4 Palestinians on a charge of collaboration, and an Israeli court sentenced him to 4 life terms. He got out on some kind of prisoner exchange. Does that shed any light now on why Israel is saying absolutely not to any prisoner exchange?
Yeah, absolutely, Gordon. You hit it right on the nail. You'll remember the incredible story of Gilad Shalit, the Israeli IDF soldier who was kidnapped back in the early 2000s. Then in 2011, Benjamin Netanyahu, who was in charge of the country back in 2011, he made a prisoner exchange. So in exchange for Gilad Shalit's life, Israel released 1,000 Palestinian Hamas leaders, Hamas fighters rather, and the topmost person, the top leader of that entire 1,000 prisoner swap was Sinwar. And obviously now the Hamas says that they want 6,000 of their Palestinian fighters who are today in Israeli prisons. They want them released in exchange for the 240-some prisoners who are under the control of Hamas.
Well, the planning for the October 7th operation, they're saying it was at least a year in planning. So how did Sinwar mislead Israeli intelligence?
Because, you know, for almost 4 decades, you know, the Israeli intelligence, the Shin Bet, along with the Mossad, they knew him. They knew him for 4 decades. Again, he was for 22 years languishing in an Israeli prison on the accounts of those murders of Palestinians. They knew who he was. But, you know, he played a very diabolical game in the sense that while he was in prison, he had a chance to, in essence, tell the Palestinians, look, we can't go toe-to-toe with the Israelis. They have 200-plus nuclear weapons. They've got a solid military force. There's no way that we can take on the Israelis. So he told Hamas and he told the Israelis, listen, let's come together. Let's work things out. And in essence, the Israeli government, they had this sort of feeling that perhaps Sinwar was trying to solidify his control, Hamas's control in the Gaza Strip, and was trying to, in essence, blackmail the Israelis for more economic concessions. And so they thought that this was, you know, the 61-year-old man who didn't speak a whole lot, you know, and wasn't talking too much, you know, that in essence he wasn't a threat to the security of Israel. Well, guess what? October 7th, that all changed.
Well, you've been talking to a member of the IDF's elite special forces unit. They're obviously tasked with destroying the network of terror tunnels. What is the IDF telling you?
Yeah, he is a member of the IDF's elite special operations engineering unit, the Yolam. And in essence, these guys are tasked with, as you mentioned, going in. There's about 500 kilometers of tunnels that stretches the entire Gaza Strip, the majority of those in the north and the south. But this IDF special forces person telling me that they are having tremendous success. Keep in mind, back in 2014, Gordon, the army, in essence, told the Israeli government, warning them, listen, if you were to go into this Mediterranean enclave, IDF forces are going to face almost 700 soldiers who would be killed or kidnapped, that they would face devastating loss. In fact, in the lead up to the ground invasion, U.S. intelligence, Western intelligence were warning the Israelis, listen, you're going to face an onslaught, a bloodbath on the streets of Gaza. But today I can tell you, 2 weeks into this ground offensive, urban warfare, Israel has lost only 32. I know that's a large number, but they've only lost 32 soldiers, the majority of the 340 losing their lives back on October 7th. But the assessment is that Israel is doing really, really well. Granted, yesterday, for example, yesterday evening, there were about 32 Hamas rockets. I mean, our phone with the red alert, I mean, it was just binging, 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 binging with all the, cities being targeted. But despite those rocket launches, Israel continues to call the shots on the in Gaza, and they are going to continue to mount an incredible offensive. And I think, as of today, I think the assessment is that Israel is going to do really, really well in the days and weeks ahead.
Well, George Thomas, thanks for your insight and thanks for the report. Israeli forces are advancing deeper inside Gaza City. The IDF is destroying the massive terror infrastructure Hamas has built there for years. Prime Minister Netanyahu is calling the military campaign so far a phenomenal success. And Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
The commander of the Southern Command said for the first time in decades, the IDF is fighting in the heart of Gaza City. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Gaza is the biggest terrorist base ever built by man.
This entire city is one big terror base. There are kilometers of tunnels underground. They are connected to hospitals, to schools. They are connected to each other. They have communication rooms, ammunition depots, places to sleep in order to serve as bases of terrorism from which the citizens of the State of Israel and IDF soldiers can be harmed.
IDF forces have located and destroyed a number of tunnels. They uncovered one tunnel next to this amusement park and another tunnel and weapons depot near a civilian university. The IDF says it proves Hamas uses its civilian population as human shields. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is calling the military campaign so far a phenomenal success, with countless Hamas bases, tunnels, and command and control centers destroyed.
We will win. We will not stop until victory. I am in continuous contact with U.S. President Joe Biden. We very much appreciate his support, the support of the American administration, and the support of the American people.
Netanyahu also said there'll be no ceasefire without the return of the hostages. Yet Axios is reporting President Joe Biden is asking Netanyahu for a 3-day pause in the fighting so more hostages can be released. The report goes on to say Netanyahu doesn't trust Hamas and Israel could lose international support. Given the alarming rise of anti-Semitism and public support for Hamas in the past month, U.S. Jewish groups are calling for a massive march for Israel in Washington, D.C. on November 14th. On Capitol Hill, the House passed a $14 billion bipartisan aid package last week, but the Senate has blocked the legislation. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson met with some of the 240 hostage families. He defended Israel's military actions.
This is clearly, as we've said so many times, good versus evil. The United States stands with the good, and we're going to stand with Israel, and that show of force, I think, is intentional and appropriate.
One family member came with a warning to the West.
This is a call for action, and this is a wake-up call not only for Israel, not only for the Jewish community. This is a wake-up call for all of you here, all of America, all of Europe. You are next. You are next. And we should do everything that we can to stop these atrocities.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Let me underline, they do intend to attack us next. When you hear the rhetoric coming out of Iran, we are called the Great Satan. Israel is called the Little Satan. So we're the bigger target. And they absolutely want to target us next. Iran is the funding entity, the funding nation. They're of Hamas. They're the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. They're funding Hezbollah. They're funding Hamas. They want Israel wiped off the map, and they want to come after us next. So if you want to support Israel, there is this rally that's scheduled for the mall in Washington, D.C. on November 14th. That's Tuesday. So if you want to show that you want to support Israel, if you live near there, turn up that day. We're seeing all these protests that are pro-Palestinian, whether it's the campuses, the universities here in America, the streets of London, in Times Square in New York City, all of these places where Palestinians are showing up. Let's show up and show that we support Israel. And we want you to know the facts about the Jewish homeland, the state of Israel. You can own a DVD copy, receive instant streaming access of CBN's documentary, The Hope, The Rebirth of Israel. This film will take you on a journey through the 50 years that preceded the founding of the modern state of Israel. You'll see history unfold through the eyes of some of Israel's greatest visionaries, their founders, David Ben-Gurion, Golda Meir. All you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000, to get your copy of The Hope, The Rebirth of Israel, and it's for a gift of any dollar amount. All you have to do is call us. You can also visit cbn.com/thehope.